against 3 playoff teams. This has kind of been nuts over the last week or so. I mean, the Orioles just in general have been playing really good baseball. They are 43-34 in their last 77 games, which is the 5th best winning percentage in baseball over that span. As mentioned, they just beat 3 really good teams. They just swept the Red Sox in a brief 2-game series in Boston. Rico Garcia is the greatest reliever on planet Earth. I mean, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, there's a lot of positive news and notes. Obviously, we're going to get into some other injury news.
You don't say.
To start off yet another podcast, we can go back and look at our compilation again if we wanted to, but this will just only add on to it. But of course, obviously, this is an overall very positive, exciting podcast. We kind of knew that whenever the promotions of Dylan Beavers and Samuel Basallo was going to come,
whatever date in mid-August that may have possibly
It's not like
come.
we called it or anything
No.
Last week, but we always knew that whenever this time came, it would be a positive podcast and something exciting to look forward to in Birdland. So obviously a 90% exciting episode here.
Yeah, Dylan Beavers, Samuel Basallo are here. They are playing really good baseball. That is what we are going to talk about today. But first, we're going to talk about injuries because that's what we do here on the Bird's
That's what
Nest.
we're used to here.
That's just what we do. I was looking at our lovely table of bobbleheads here, which you should be watching if you're following along with us live on our YouTube and Facebook channels where you can see our lovely table of bobbleheads. Pretty much every single bobblehead that we have here, I think it is literally every single active player on this bobblehead
I could just start pushing
table.
over each one that's been injured.
That would be all of them.
Yep.
Every single bobblehead that we have of an active Oriole has been on the injured list at some point this season. We can knock Jordan Westburg down right now because he's the first one that we're going to talk about. Not on the injured list yet.
Right.
We don't know if he is going to go on the injured list. It looked like he rolled his ankle in Boston on Monday, so he's been out for a bit. He's been out of the lineup for the past few days. The Orioles have an off day today. It sounds like tomorrow, once the Orioles come back home and have a 4-game series against Houston, they will figure out whether or not Jordan Westburg needs an injured list stint. He is a tough dude, and so you never know with a guy like that. But, yeah, just tough play. Looks like he rolled his ankle going around second base, and so he's been out for the last few days. We're still waiting to hear some more information on that.
Yeah, it seems as if this kind of off day will be a little bit of a reset and kind of some time for some more information than just Jordan Westburg, Adley Rutschman, but also Tony Mansolino said that they'll probably know more after this off day on Felix Bautista as well, and what kind of those medical opinions have said since we found out about that significant shoulder injury last week, I guess. But so for Jordan Westburg, obviously you're hoping that he stays healthy. Like you mentioned, he's just an absolute ball player, so I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to kind of play through it again, kind of like what we saw in the beginning of the season or the middle of the season with that finger injury and the wrist as well. There isn't necessarily that much at stake right now, so you don't know if you do want to keep pushing an injury, if there is one. But either way, hopefully that he can stay off the injured list and come back relatively soon. Same for Adley.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Jordan Westburg, Adley Rutschman, Felix Bautista, 3 injuries that we don't know a lot about. Bautista, obviously, on the injured list at this point, is not going to be back this season. Mansolino said Westburg and Rutschman were waiting to hear if they are going to go on the injured list, if they need to, or if they're just going to miss a few days and then be back in the lineup. Yeah, there's nothing really at stake in terms of a playoff position. The Orioles actually did jump the Twins in the standings yesterday, so if you are looking at teams that they would need to hypothetically jump over in order to make a wild card spot in the American League, they have conquered one of those teams.
Yep.
They are now ahead of the Minnesota Twins and are not in the bottom 3 in the American League for the first time in a long time this season. So that's nice. There's still theoretically a chance. They need to be about 20 games over 500 for the rest of the season, but you never know.
Feels like they've been 8.5 games specifically back of the wild card for
a while.
Almost the whole season.
Yeah,
so.
and that's what we were kind of talking about around the trade deadline, where they were just hovering around that point for so long, because it's not just your wins and losses in a vacuum. It's everybody else's wins and losses. So obviously a lot of ground to make up. They are not completely out of it yet, but they would need to play some unbelievable baseball. But to that point, though, yes, Jordan Westburg and Adley Rutschman being out more than likely doesn't have a consequence in terms of what the wins and losses look like towards a playoff push, but you still want the wins and losses to be there to put some positive momentum into next season. Right? You want to establish a culture of winning baseball. Mansolino has said it with these young guys coming up. They don't want them to be playing losing baseball. Yeah. Samuel Basallo and Dylan Beavers are here now. They want them to be in the big leagues and understand that they are trying to win every single baseball game that they play. And they want them to be in a winning environment. And it's been cool over the past 3 series, Beavers and Basallo being up for the last 2, that the Orioles are beating playoff teams. Like, this is something that the Orioles can do down the stretch. If they aren't going to make the playoffs, they can still play spoiler for a lot of teams. I mean, the Astros and Mariners were fighting for the division. For the AOS, they are right there, and the Orioles took 2 out of 3 against both of them.
Right.
This is the thing that the Orioles can do for the remainder of the season, and they need to win games, right? And Jordan Westburg said it too, pretty candidly. Like, if we're going to show the front office that we can be competitive in 2026 and show them that they should be making moves this offseason in order to help us be a competitive team next year, then we need to show that we can win. And we need to do that now. And he's absolutely right.
And for the progression of Basallo and Beavers, like you mentioned, and like we talked about at points throughout last season, where it's like some of these guys have never really been on losing teams. Like when you came up with Colton Cowser, Jordan Westburg, they were a part of a winning ball club at that point.
Yeah, I mean, Norfolk won the title a few years ago.
And like, they didn't necessarily experience that kind of adversity when it came to consistent losses. And this season was a big part of that for some of those guys like Adley, Gunnar, Colton, Jordan, Jackson Holiday, you name it. You don't necessarily want that for Samuel Basallo and Dylan Beavers. You kind of want them to have that same experience. Yes, it's good to experience adversity and see how they can handle it.
Yeah.
And that's something that Tony Mansolino has said that they're watching at every single kind of like aspect, how they react to certain at-bats, how they react to everything. It's very important to see how a young guy, 21-year-old in Basallo, reacts to adversity like that. But at the same time, it's pretty good to come up in your first major league stint and be winning ball games.
Yeah, that's what you need to be doing over the last month and a half. It may not make a difference in terms of a playoff push, but it makes a difference in terms of what this team believes they can do going into next season. And like Westburg said, it shows the front office, hey, you have a lot of the pieces in place to build a winning team in 2026, and now you need to go supplement it. You are forcing their hand a little bit if you're showing them what this team can be, hopefully close to full strength next year. If it's a healthy offseason, if, we're going to find out what the injury for Felix looks like. But going into this year, there were so many injuries that carried over into the season. You knew going into things that you weren't going to have Kyle Bradish and Tyler Wells, right? So going into next year, hopefully, you won't have any injuries like that. Grayson Rodriguez's injury, I know, has been a lengthy one, but from the sounds of things, it seems like he should have a fully healthy spring training and be ready to go into 2026. You're hoping for the same for Felix Bautista. So you're hoping that you can go into this offseason and say, hey, there are no injuries that are carrying forth into this year. This is going to be a team that is hopefully pretty close to full strength. Let's go build this thing and let's go win some ball games.
And to your point of kind of forcing the front office's hand a little bit, it is huge right now to kind of show that team cohesion when you have everyone that is expected to be a contributor next year.
Yeah.
If you have Adley in and you have Basallo in, that's ultimately going to be your catcher duo for next season. It'd be great to see what they are like together as a duo, flip-flopping in and out throughout the week. And if you get that with Adley being healthy, that would be huge, of course. Right. And same with Westburg, too, how he interacts with Basallo if he's at first or if he's behind the dish at the same time. Dylan Beavers, how he interacts with a guy like Colton Cowser in the outfield as well. So just seeing how the momentum of this team is right now and the cohesion of how they can play to end 2025, a season filled with difficult experiences and kind of below expectations, how that they can kind of come out on top as a unit that's supposed to be expected to be in 2026.
Yeah, it's important. You need to build some momentum going into next year and into the offseason. We do have some positive injury updates, though. Kyle Bradish expected to rejoin the team in the August 25th to 27th range. And if my math is correct, that's within the next week. So that is very exciting to see Kyle Bradish back on the mound. It seems like the plan for the Orioles is probably to go to a 6-man rotation. I don't think there's anybody in this rotation right now that you don't want to see get more opportunities. We're going to talk about Brandon Young in a minute. He probably would have been the guy that maybe gets optioned to AAA Norfolk. I think after Friday's performance, he is probably no longer that guy. So with Bradish, you temper expectations a little bit, right? And especially considering where you are in the standings, you don't need to push Kyle Bradish past 4 or 5 innings in his starts. You don't need to see him throw 105 pitches, right? This is all going to be a part of a more broad plan to make sure that he has a healthy offseason, that he is ramping up and ready to go into next season. You don't need him to really, really push it down the stretch. I mean, he has had nice rehab outings, right? We saw him get up to 74 pitches in his last rehab appearance. Maybe he gets up to around 80 pitches. I don't think we see Kyle Bradish throw more than 80, 85 pitches in a start for the rest of this year, and we shouldn't. I don't think he throws more than 5 innings in a start this year, because worst case scenario is you rush him back for what is right now absolutely no reason. It's not like you're making a playoff push and need him to start game 2 somewhere, right? Like, Kyle Bradish, you're going to be careful, but it is going to be really nice to see him back in Baltimore.
Right, and it's kind of going to be the perfect time to make that comeback to the big leagues as well. Like you mentioned, that it's not a playoff push. The stakes are a lot lesser of a degree there, but also at the same time, when you have a bullpen that doesn't necessarily have a specific closer, it doesn't necessarily have specific roles right now, that's also going to be really important to look at when Kyle Bradish does make his return, how deep into the game he's going to be able to go, and then who is going to be there in the bullpen and what roles, because obviously right now this is a time period for kind of some trial and error and see who could fit where going into 2026, and that's pretty much what is going to be the rest of 2025, is a lot of moving pieces and who's going to find and solidify a spot for themselves in the next season.
Right, and we know Bradish is going to be one of those guys who will be here, and like we were talking about, it's going to give you some positive thoughts about 2026 if Kyle Bradish comes back and gives you a solid 4 or 5 innings at a time. You aren't going to be looking at, okay, is he giving you 7 innings, 1 earned, but is the velocity there? Is the stuff still there? We haven't seen him pitch at the big league level in a long time. And so if you're looking at his StatCast page and the velocity and the spin rates and this and that all look pretty similar to what we saw out of Kyle Bradish in, 2023 and in 2024, then you feel good about that. So that is going to be the big thing to see for him, and I'm excited to see him back in Baltimore very soon, as I'm sure Orioles fans are as well. But before we get into Beavers and Basallo, which we will, I just want to talk about how good this stretch has been. Again, we've been talking about it a little bit, but Brandon Young deserves some love for what happened on Friday in Houston. 7 2/3 innings, perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, I was sitting up in the press box. I was sweating. I was nervous.
I bet.
Like, you start to
sweating
get
on my couch at home.
It's one of those things where you can look at a pitcher who is perfect through like 3 innings. And you're like, oh, cool. Good start to the game. And then it usually doesn't get to 4. And then once it gets to 5, you're like, okay, something's going on. And then it gets through 6. And it wasn't even really close. I mean, you didn't have a ton of loud outs. Like, there weren't any really spectacular plays. There were a few plays that made you hold your breath a little bit, like in right and center field when Greg Allen and Daniel Johnson ran into each other, and I thought they were going to drop the ball. That was the play, though, where they run into each other and hold on to the ball, and you're like, this might be one of the plays that we talk about of like, oh my God, the perfect game almost went. And then, of course, with 2 outs in the 8th inning, it's a dribbler from Ramon Urias. I think it was...
Of course it was Ramon Urias.
Of course it was Ramon Urias.
Literally, of course.
I think it was, 60 miles an hour off the bat. Really tough play for Brandon Young. Obviously, in hindsight, he could have planted his feet, made a stronger throw, but he's just trying to make a play. I could not imagine his nerves at that point, seeing a ball on the ground. Maybe Jordan Westberg gets to that ball as well. He's charging in from third base. Ramon Arias, we love him, not the fastest runner on the planet. And so hindsight, obviously 2020 there, but Brandon Young, I mean, he comes back the next batter too and strikes him out, which shows great poise out of a young pitcher. That's obviously the best we had seen Brandon Young in his young career, but
by far, in a way.
What a game.
Yeah.
What a game for him.
No, it was incredible. And even Ben McDonald said it perfectly after the fact where, okay, it's even worse for it to happen on a little bit of a dribbler infield than like, okay, that ball was perfectly hard hit. And just like a single or a double at that point. But so you really feel for him in that moment. He made another incredible defensive play where Kobe Mayo kind of passed it a little bit behind him, but he used his athleticism to get the batter out at first. Just a really incredible start and incredible turnaround from Brandon Young. Also really kind of cool to note, just of course, with how Trevor Rogers' season has been going.
Yeah.
He mentioned after the game how Rogers helped him a ton with that poise and that mature approach on the mound out there. He said that, look, you can see what Rogers has done this year. He told me just to focus on pitch by pitch, and that's something Rogers has had to overcome a lot this year. So it's really incredible to see not only Rogers' incredible season, but what he's been able to do helping and leading with Brandon Young, and in an effort to get him to get almost 8 perfect innings.
Yeah, because a lot of the things that those two guys talk about have been very similar. I remember talking to Trevor Rogers pretty early in the season, and when Rogers got into a little bit of trouble earlier on in the season, it was because he felt like he was trying to make the perfect pitch all the time. 2 strikes, he was trying to be absolutely perfect with it. And that's something that Brandon Young has talked about a lot, where he's been frustrated where he gets guys into 0-2, 1-2 counts, and then all of a sudden it's 3-2 because he's just trying to make the perfect pitch with 2 strikes. And we saw on Friday that he wasn't perfect. He was getting guys to chase a lot. The fastball wasn't in the heart of the zone, which was great, but he was moving all of his pitches around. His slider was super, super effective. And so, yeah, it maybe wasn't his most precise outings in terms of, okay, every single fastball is exactly where he wanted it to be, but he didn't make any terrible mistakes with it. And his stuff was just good enough to get guys to chase, to get guys to strike out. But it was just so impressive too, and really, really cool that, you know, Brandon Young grew up about an hour from, I forget the name of the new park now in Houston, what used to be Minute Maid Park. Whatever it is, Dyken Park. And Brandon Young had all of his friends and family there. He was talking about how he was sitting in right field all the time when he was growing up, like watching the Killer Bees of Biggio and Jeff Bagwell and all those guys. Just really cool out of him. But you mentioned Trevor Rogers, too. We're going to have a full podcast on Trevor Rogers at some point. I think it might be next week. It just keeps happening.
I know.
He keeps going, like 7 innings, 1 earned, 8 innings, nowhere. I don't understand what is happening, but Trevor Rogers is having one of the best 12-game stretches in Major League Baseball history. I mean, there was a great stat I saw from Matt Wyrick on Twitter of the Baltimore Sun where he compared Trevor Rogers' numbers to the guys that won Cy Young in 2020, because this is about how many starts they got in that shortened 2020 season. Trevor Rogers wins Cy Young in 2020. Like, this is one of the best 12-game stretches baseball has ever seen.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Jinx.
That was weird.
It's actually ridiculous. And it's even crazier to think, too, like when you look at his StatCast page. I mean, obviously, we're going to get into Trevor Rogers very much more in depth at another
I think it might be
time.
Next week. We're going to have a full podcast on Trevor Rogers because this is absurd.
But even like his expected ERA is in the 85th percentile at 3.06. But if an expected ERA is in the 85th percentile at 3.06, his actual ERA of 1.41, I don't know if that's been updated since, it must have been.
Yeah, 1.41.
Is actually absurd.
Yeah.
Like, this guy is seriously, like, the turnaround from going last season with a 7.11 ERA as an Oriole after the trade deadline to right now is actually insane. And it will be something to be studied for many years to come, which is so, so cool.
The wild thing to me is that Trevor Rogers next time out could go 6 innings, 1 earned run, and his ERA would get worse.
Yeah. That's actually crazy.
His ERA would get worse if he goes 6 innings, 1 earned run next time out. So we're going to talk more in depth about Trevor Rogers, I think maybe next week, because he is deserving of a full 40-minute podcast for the 100%. Return of what people had written him off to be in the offseason, and especially going into this year, and then seeing the flash in Boston in that one start before he gets sent back down to AAA Norfolk and then coming up and doing what he's done. It's unbelievable.
I mean, people thought that was the worst MLB trade in history.
Yes.
And now...
people have, on Orioles Twitter, have called it maybe the worst trade in the history of the Orioles.
I mean, oh my gosh.
It's not.
It's clearly not.
By the way.
Worked out for both teams pretty much, but at least right now the Orioles have
Kyle Stowers having a great season. Happy for him.
History.
Trevor Rogers is the best. Is literally the best pitcher in baseball right now.
So
over the last 2 months.
There you go.
Unbelievable. All right. Let's get to the main topic of conversation today, because for as wild of a stretch as this has been, with Brandon Young almost going perfect, with Trevor Rogers being unbelievable again, the big storylines on Saturday, Dylan Beavers promoted. And then on Sunday, Samuel Basallo.
Just have to give a little clap to those two.
They're here. And they have really hit the ground running. They've played really, really good baseball so far. Let's start with Dylan Beavers. We'll go chronologically here. Dylan Beavers gets promoted on Saturday. This one was a little bit of a different move from Basallo. They are similar in the sense that they both had unbelievable seasons at AAA Norfolk and were worthy of a promotion. They are different in that there was an obvious need for Dylan Beavers. This is nothing against Greg Allen and Daniel Johnson and Dylan Carlson, guys like that who have filled in and, performed pretty admirably when the Orioles just had a dire need in the outfield. Dylan Beavers is a guy that profiles as a potential everyday starter at the big league level, with Tyler O'Neill being out, with Colton Cowser being pushed to center field. You needed somebody in a corner outfield, and Dylan Beavers really naturally slots in as that guy. And I think that the story for him is really cool because, even going back to what I thought of Dylan Beavers last year, there were question marks with him because in 2024, it's not a spectacular season for a guy who was a pretty high draft pick out of Cal. It's a 750 OPS. He spends a lot of time in AA, and he's not great there. There are always tools with Dylan Beavers. He was a really good power hitter. He had great speed. He was a solid defender in the outfield. But the question mark with him was how the bat was going to translate. There were so many funky mechanics going on with his swing. I am not a scout. I also did not play professional baseball, but just from watching his swing in the minor leagues, there were so many moving parts that it felt like it was difficult for him to really get on tempo. It seemed like the off-speed stuff he just wasn't in a rhythm for. He wasn't on time for fastballs all the time. And then in 2025, he gets promoted to AAA Norfolk at the tail end of last year. And in 2025, he's unbelievable in AAA Norfolk. 94 games, a 304 batting average, 420 on base, 934 OPS, a good strikeout to walk ratio, 18 homers, 23 steals. And you see the swing up at the majors, and it's smooth. You would never know that there were questions with his swing mechanics.
Yeah, and this year has been incredibly huge for what he has done with that same swing, especially with Norfolk and especially with new Tides manager Tim Fedorovich. When I spoke with Fedorovich a couple of months ago now, I think that was probably end of June, he said that what they were working on and what Beavers had switched or at least changed a little bit with his swing was to be a little bit more aggressive at the plate, because this is a guy who is typically passive. He doesn't chase.
Yeah.
Even right now, the sample size is so small in the big leagues, but even right now, his chase rate in the big leagues is 5.7%. I mean, yes, it's only like literally 11 at-bats, but still.
It's still a good sign, yeah.
Yeah, this is a guy that you're not going to get any chase from, and if he does, the reason he got to be so much better this year in AAA was because he was starting to be a little bit less passive, starting to be more aggressive at the plate, and that's where that kind of extra exit velocity had come from him and that extra power, which necessarily hadn't been seen from Beavers in previous years.
Yeah, I mean, he has really put everything together. The strikeout to walk ratio this year has improved a ton. I'm really impressed by the batting average itself. too. A 304 batting average for the Tides this year. That is higher than any batting average he's had in just his recent baseball career. It's higher than any batting average he had in college. I mean, he hit 303 as a sophomore, so splitting hairs a little bit at Cal. But you would expect somebody that's hitting over 300 in professional baseball in AAA to have hit like 350 in college. But Dylan Beavers was never really an average hitter, a batting average hitter, I should say, in college. He was a guy that hit for a lot of power, and that was kind of his upside there, but he has almost changed his profile a little bit to profile as more of a five-tool potential guy where he will hit for average at the big league level, it would seem. And he is going to get on base. He is going to take his walks, and the power is still going to be there. And he has already done a lot of good things at the big league level. You mentioned the chase rate. I was really impressed by just some small things in Houston. There was I think it was a hit and run, but I forget exactly who the batter was, but it was a ball hit into the outfield, pretty sharply hit, and it lands right in front of the outfielder in right field. And Dylan Beavers just got an outstanding read on it and goes first to third, gets himself on third base with just one out in the inning. Those are the small things that it felt like a veteran move from him, where that's an outstanding read on the base paths, and he goes first to third, and now all of a sudden the Orioles are in a good position. And you would expect like a Jordan Westberg to do that. You would expect a Gunnar Henderson to do that. But for Beavers to do that in one of his first games, to have that kind of read on the base paths, it was just impressive. It feels like he has come in, he's been confident, he's been calm, and he's just he's bringing a good approach, and it's been kind of smooth sailing so far.
Yeah, and pretty cool to see that kind of instinct, too, from a guy like Beavers, especially when you hear from kind of Tony Mansolino right now saying, look, they've just come up. We're not going to tell them to do anything. We're going to have them play the way that they've been playing and the way that they kind of made a case for themselves to get promoted. Obviously that's going to happen when you aren't necessarily going to be listening in to specific hitters' meetings as a newly promoted player, but it's really great news to see a guy like Dylan Beavers, who's just been promoted, have that kind of instincts on the base paths. And we also saw kind of his toughest test, too, in defense out in the outfield yesterday. So really great to see him succeeding there a little bit more in that role on defense as well. So really, really good things all around from Beavers, and you just hope that it continues as he gets more and more comfortable. It was a very different scenario, and Mansolino brought this up too with Kobe Mayo, where he got called up, and same with even Jackson Holliday too, where their necessary everyday playing time wasn't carved out for them. There were still guys who had already proved themselves at the big league level, or injuries, or some other players and maneuvering around the infield for both Mayo and Holliday. But right now it's a different story where you're going to try and get as much playing time from Basallo and Beavers as possible.
Yeah, they just look like they're having fun.
Yeah.
Right? There's not a lot of pressure with this team right now. And Dylan Beavers adds a lot of fun. He's a fun, goofy dude, and the guys in the clubhouse love him. Jackson Holliday said that Beavers was one of his best buddies, those two guys in the 2022 draft class together. And so, he's brought a lot of fun to that clubhouse, and he's playing good baseball, too. And like I said, I've really been impressed with just how calm he's been in his first at-bat. I think he struck out in 3 pitches, and then after that, you could clearly see him just, okay, exhale a little bit after that.
Once that double hit, he was good as gold.
Yeah, and he's been playing well. And I think over the next month and a half, I'm going to be curious to see. He is going to get every opportunity, right? What does his role look like in 2026? Does he play well enough down the stretch to say, hey, this might be a starting corner outfielder next year? That is a lot of pressure for a guy like that. Or do you go into next season confident that Dylan Beavers is a really good fourth outfielder? I'm not sure if there is anything that Beavers will be able to do over the next month and a half to sway the Orioles one way or another. Maybe there's a plan in place there, and the Orioles feel like they already have a good sense of what that is, and who knows how good or how poorly Dylan Beavers would have to be this remainder of the season to push the Orioles in one direction or the other. But it could be a little bit of an audition period. If Dylan Beavers lights the world on fire, I think you're going to have a hard time saying we need another starting corner outfielder over Dylan Beavers at this point. Like the bat with him, we're going to see how it translates. It seems so far like it's going to translate well, but we know the other stuff that he can do. We know he's going to defend. We know he's going to run the base paths well. We know he's going to be a threat to steal. Like he can do a lot of other good things. And if the bat translates pretty quickly, then maybe that changes the Orioles' calculus this offseason.
Yeah, and so much of the offseason, too, is unprecedented. Like, obviously, you have guys that you can pick up in free agency, and, of course, they're probably going to try and fill out a little bit so that they have depth on all areas of the field and in the lineup and in the starting rotation, you name it, just because of how the last 2 seasons have gone with injuries and whatnot. So so much is unprecedented when it comes to the offseason picking up players, but at the same time, if Beavers really makes an effort to prove himself right now in this last month and a half or so, then I would feel pretty comfortable with having him as a designated everyday outfielder or fourth option if you bring in another free agent. Tyler O'Neill healthy, keeps that club option, whatnot.
Yeah, I think there's probably a best case scenario where Dylan Beavers is maybe your fourth outfielder playing first. It reminds me of where Colton Cowser and Heston Kjerstad have been in years past, where Colton Cowser, last year when he was runner-up in Rookie of the Year voting and maybe arguably should have won Rookie of the Year, he starts that season as the fourth outfielder, and he is playing behind Austin Hayes and Cedric Mullins, and then he just keeps playing good baseball and earns his way there. And so I think there's probably an ideal scenario where Dylan Beavers is in a similar spot where you're not counting on a rookie to be your starting corner outfielder every single day. Maybe he's your fourth guy, and if he just keeps playing good baseball, then you find at-bats for him because there are always injuries. There are always going to be spots that open up and playing time that opens up. So I think that's probably your best-case scenario. And also, even if Beavers does have a spectacular last month and a half, how often do you see a second-year player struggle a little bit? Because once you have punched, the league tends to counterpunch, right? So we'll see going into next year, but at least for right now, Dylan Beavers is here. Dylan Beavers is playing good baseball, and it's fun. It is also fun to watch Samuel Basallo, who is really, really good. If you didn't know that Samuel Basallo is a really good hitter, you have now understood that Samuel Basallo is a really good hitter. If his 3-run homer doesn't get robbed in his MLB debut in his very first game on Sunday, Samuel Basallo goes 2 for 4 with 5 RBIs.
Yeah, it's insane.
He has an RBI in each of his first 3 games as a professional baseball player. Yesterday, he pinch hits in the 11th inning and scrapes a ball off the dirt in an 0-2 count and just hits a little dribbler in play to bring in what would eventually become the game-winning run. I mean, the stuff that he does offensively is comical. Quite literally, you ask any player in the clubhouse what kind of talent Samuel Basallo is. I think we asked both Dylan Beavers and Jackson Holliday on Saturday, and both of them laughed. Because it's like, I mean, you're seeing what I'm right? Like, we both see the same guy that's in the... He's ridiculous offensively.
It's just like absurd. He's like already built as a big league player. He's
already a big dude.
He already looks like a big league player, just kind of with the immediate impact that the bat has brought. I mean, it was a 966 OPS in AAA.
That's ridiculous.
Beavers wasn't that far off behind that either. But it's just like when we said that Basallo's bat was going to be an immediate translation to the big leagues, we meant it, and we are seeing it right now.
We were serious.
And also just in terms of defense, too, behind the dish, that was obviously the biggest question mark with Basallo, with how young he was, not getting that many reps at catcher this year in AAA. That was what was almost holding him back to his promotion, and finally, he got that call-up. He got that first appearance behind the dish, I guess, what was that, on Monday, maybe?
Yeah.
And Trevor Rogers was extremely impressed by him. He credited him for calling a fantastic game. Mancelino credited him for calling a fantastic game. It is just all around an exceptional player right now, and it's only going to go up from here, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah, and one more thing I want to point out on Basallo offensively, there's not a ton to talk about with him offensively. He hits for average. He's going to hit for power. He is going to hit 7,000 home runs. Like, the bat is going to translate. Whether it translates immediately or not, it kind of looks like it maybe already will. Who is to say? The bat speed. Samuel Basallo at 78.1 miles an hour.
Yep.
He is clocked at the 4th fastest bat speed in baseball already. And what's crazy about it, too, is that his swing is pretty short.
Yeah.
Like, it's a compact swing, but he still generates that much power. Like, we're talking about Giancarlo Stanton, O'Neal Cruz, Junior Caminero level of bat speed for Samuel Basallo.
I saw a comment when I interviewed.
It's insane.
It is insane. I saw a comment when I interviewed him in Norfolk and I was sitting next to him in the dugout. They're like, there is no way that guy is only 180 pounds just because of how big he is.
Yeah,
and the power.
Whatever you listed Samuel Basallo as. No.
They have him at 6'4", 180. He just seems much more than that, just given the bat speed, given the power. Also, one thing is the chase rate right now. That was obviously a little bit of a concern for him right now, or at least in the minor leagues, just given. But the fact of the matter is Basallo is a great player because he hits for power and because he goes and is aggressive at the plate. So that's all you can really lean towards, and you're kind of leaning on the fact that he is going to hit for power, and when he makes contact, that's what makes him great, not necessarily the chasing.
I forget who tweeted it the other day, but there was something about, okay, Basallo, he hit a lot of fastballs up and out of the zone in the minor leagues. That's cool. He's not going to do it in the big, and then he did it in the big leagues. Yeah. It's like, okay, you're not going to change who Samuel Basallo is. He's going to chase out of the zone sometimes if there's a fastball that he really likes in his eyes, and he's still going to find a way to hit it. So I don't really care if he is chasing a lot. The strikeout rate, too, though, it's not anything crazy. I mean, he played 76 games in AAA, and he had 76 strikeouts. So it's not like he is striking out at some sort of ridiculous rate because he's chasing all the time. He chases, and then he makes contact. So it's fine.
Yeah.
I think Basallo is he's only going to get better offensively. He is only going to get more comfortable. And that's scary. That is really scary for the rest of baseball. But you mentioned the important thing, and that is catching. What is Samuel Basallo able to do behind the plate? Tony Mansolino said that both he and Mike Elias think it is incredibly important over the last month and a half of the season to have Samuel Basallo catch not as many games as possible, but catch a lot, catch pretty frequently, because you want to see what he can do there. And the interesting point for Mansolino, too, was that you're not really looking for the physical traits. Even as Samuel Basallo, after being a young international signing, has, kind of been built up and is now obviously a much bigger dude, I think the concern was that he is just going to grow out of the position. That hasn't really happened because, as Mansolino said, he is a good receiver. He catches well. He is a good blocker. He is athletic enough to get to balls in the dirt. And he has a cannon for an arm. Yeah. He should be able to throw out a lot of runners at second base. But what they are trying to see with Samuel Basallo behind the plate is, can he execute a game plan? Can he go through, the pregame work that is involved with pitchers meetings and with this and with that, and can he call a game effectively? Yeah. And that's nothing against Samuel Basallo as a catcher or anything about his makeup. It's just something that's really hard to do for a kid that just turned 21 years old to be able to come up and call a major league game. That's just a really difficult thing for somebody that young, and he's not an Adley Rutschman, where Adley plays 3 years at Oregon State. And Adley, as a catcher at that level, we heard so much about, his coaches in college just kind of let Adley do his own thing because he had such a command of the game and was so good at it. By the way, it's going to be incredibly valuable for Samuel Basallo to have Adley Rutschman at the big league level to learn that kind of stuff. But for Basallo, that's just going to be the learning curve because it is an entirely different animal when you get up to the big league level. And you're not working with pitchers in the minor leagues where, maybe one day it's, hey, we're going to work on a bunch of these things because you're a minor league pitcher and you're progressing. Right. And, hey, we want to see how this new grip that you have on your changeup works against left-handed batters, so you're going to throw that a lot today. That's not what's happening at the big league level. You are game planning. You are calling the game. And, one start in, Trevor Rogers praised him, which was really, really cool to see. But that's what the Orioles want to see. How can Basallo handle all of the mental side that goes into being a catcher at the big league level.
And I'm interested, too, to see where or what it looks like for him if first base is an option, too, for him as well.
Because it is. Yeah, he's going to be playing some first base.
And then you have a lefty first baseman option, too, in that lineup because obviously Kobe Mayo, Ryan Mountcastle, both righties, whatnot. Designated hitter is still an option for Samuel Basallo, if not one of the biggest options for him. But when it comes to first base, too, it was so pivotal for the Orioles to build him up to in some kind of defensive versatility so that you could carve a way for him to make it to the big leagues. And we've seen on first base in the minor leagues that kind of athleticism that he has for being such a big guy. He's done the splits maybe 3 times now in the minor leagues. So it'll be really interesting to see his first game at first base. I'm very excited to see what that looks like.
Yeah, I think he has the chance to be a really good defensive first baseman. Yeah. I've talked about it with Kobe Mayo in the past too, where, that's an athletic guy. He was playing third base, right? And so to have him at first base, assuming the skills come around, there's a different side to first base. It's the Moneyball joke where everybody thinks first base is really easy, and it's not that easy. Kobe Mayo is learning a lot of that stuff right now, but Samuel Basallo has done a really nice job at first base from what we've been able to see and hear in the minor leagues. He is really athletic, and I think there's a bit of a tier system, right? Ideally, you would love Samuel Basallo to be a catcher. If that doesn't really work out the way that you're hoping to, then you would love for him to be a first baseman. If that doesn't really work out the way that you're hoping to, then you are still really, really happy with him as your designated hitter because of what he can do at the plate. But I think there's a really good chance that he ends up being a good defender at one, if not both, of those positions. Like, can he be a Carlos Santana in the early days of Santana where he was catching 2 times a week, maybe playing a lot of first base too, just because you wanted to get him in the lineup because he was a really prolific hitter at that point? Samuel Basallo, I could see profiling in a similar way. Adley Rutschman is the primary catcher on this team. Adley Rutschman is the best defensive catcher on this team. Every time that there has been a good start by an Orioles pitcher this year, it seems like one of the first things out of their mouths is, man, Adley Rutschman called a heck of a game.
Yeah.
Like, that is the kind of value that Adley Rutschman brings behind the dish.
Almost perfect game.
Brandon Young, one of the first things he said, Adley Rutschman called a heck of a game.
And it was huge, too, because of his framing that game, especially when Brandon Young was pitching at least out of the zone just a little bit and getting players to chase. Did I say Adley Rutschman was getting players to chase? Anyway, Adley Rutschman's catching behind the dish was huge for that type of game with Brandon Young's fastball command, but at the same time having him go a little bit out of the zone and into the shadow of the strike zone and whatnot. That was one of the first things that Manso said as well, was that Adley called a great game.
Yep. I mean, Adley's value there is really invaluable. And like I said, he is going to be so crucial in helping Samuel Basallo develop that part of his game, and he is a leader. Adley Rutschman is a leader in this clubhouse. He is a leader, especially, I know he feels it personally with the pitching staff, that he wants to be as much of a leader for those guys as he possibly can, and I think that extends to the rest of the catchers as well, and I have no doubt that Rutschman is going to take Basallo under his wing a little bit, and knowing that this is going to be the learning curve for him, it's the thing that Adley Rutschman does about as well as any catcher in the game. And so, but the point being there too is that if you're looking at 2026, Adley Rutschman is your primary catcher.
Yeah.
More often than not, you want Adley Rutschman behind the dish calling a game, and that is nothing against Samuel Basallo. It is a credit to Adley Rutschman and how good of a game he calls and the amount of praise that he gets from his pitching staff day in and day out. So ideally, next season, Adley Rutschman is catching 4 times a week, somewhere around there. You're probably going to have 3 catchers on the roster with Samuel Basallo on the team, just because you want Rutschman and Basallo in the lineup every day because they are 2 of your better hitters on the team as well. And so in an ideal world in 2026, you might have Adley Rutschman catching 3 times a week, Samuel Basallo catching twice, and a third catcher catching once. And then all of a sudden you're pretty much done with a week, right? So I think that's the scenario you're probably looking at, where Basallo doesn't need to be your primary catcher, but you would love for him to be able to do it and do it well and do it to the point where he can catch 2-3 times a week next year.
And for right now, too, if Adley, say this kind of strain or discomfort in his abdominal strain discomfort.
Yep, there
words.
it
is. Say that this is a little bit more serious, then obviously, well, you're going to get Basallo some more reps behind the dish anyway. It was going to be carved in either way, but Mancelino kind of said that you're not necessarily going to have. He doesn't want to wear them out a little bit too early on, both of them, when it comes to playing time. Obviously, Basallo was not in the lineup yesterday, came in as a pinch hitter, and we all know what he did there. But when it comes to getting those reps behind the dish right now is going to be really important for Basallo, and really important to kind of learn that advice from Adley Rutschman, whether that's in the dugout, whether that's not during the game, you name it.
Yeah, and it's going to be important regardless for Rutschman. It makes me think back to Jordan Westburg last year when Westburg was out for a while, that, he just wanted to still be a vocal leader in the clubhouse and be around the guys and be around the dugout when games were going on to offer advice and to be more of a vocal guy. Hopefully it doesn't come to that with Adley Rutschman, but even if he is out for a bit, hopefully you still see him being that kind of mentor figure for Samuel Basallo. But the Orioles are fun right now.
Yeah.
Like, they have won each of their last 3 series. They have won 6 of their last 7 games against really good playoff teams. They have the chance to do it again. They've got a 4-game series against Houston, and then they've got a 4-game series against Boston. 8 consecutive games at home. They are going to be fun games. They just swept Boston, and they dominated the Astros. I mean, they dominated the game on Friday, dominated the game on Sunday, and lost in extras on Saturday. So, really, this has been quite the stretch for those guys. And like I said, it just seems like they're not playing with a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
You saw it at the beginning of the season with a lot of guys pressing. And, hopefully this can just be a lesson for 26 where just have fun playing the game. Go out. You don't need to be pressure-filled all the time. Like, just go out, have fun. Basallo and Beavers have brought energy. It has brought a little bit of a jolt of life. They were playing good baseball before they got here too, so I'm not going to sit here and say that Basallo and Beavers have injected life into the not really.
No.
But they've added a fun element, and you've added 2 good baseball players to the team.
And what hasn't been talked about enough is how well Gunnar Henderson is playing on defense right now.
Gunnar Henderson,
it's absurd.
I don't know if he is going to win
he looks
the Gold
like
Glove.
The best shortstop in baseball right now.
If you had to guess the last time that Gunnar Henderson committed an error.
I actually know this, so I'm just going to go along with it.
Okay, well, if you would like to say it, go ahead.
I know it's in June.
It's the middle of June.
Yeah.
We're in the middle of August. It has been like 2 months since Gunnar Henderson committed an error at shortstop.
And for someone that created a lot of question marks in the beginning of the season on both the bat and on defense, this is an insane look at how good he is.
I remember getting into a Twitter argument with somebody early in the year that said that Gunnar Henderson should be moved to third base.
This was rant number 1 for
laughing
Brendan.
at you. It was a rant.
It was.
On this podcast that somebody said that Gunnar Henderson should be moved to third base, and I am laughing at you. I don't know who you are, and I don't remember your Twitter handle, but I am laughing at you right now. I'm looking into this camera right now. If you're watching, you were wrong, and you were silly, and your takes are filled with nonsense.
Never get into a Brendan rant.
Well, just don't say things like Gunnar Henderson's not a shortstop, and then I won't yell at you.
They had move Jackson Holliday to shortstop and then just bench Gunnar or have him at third base.
If you give a take that makes sense, I won't make fun of you. But if you give a take that doesn't make sense, I will make fun of you, and unfortunately, you deserve it.
Oh my gosh. Well, there you go.
Vindication.
Only provide good take.
At last. And vindication for us who kept yelling last year that you don't trade Samuel Basallo for pitching.
Feels great to be in the in the good opinions.
Feels great to be in the podcast studio just giving out only correct opinions. That's why people tune into the Bird's Nest.
Exactly.
Don't look at our whiteboards about our takes from who would win Orioles awards for the beginning of the year. Anyway, I think that'll just about do it for this week's edition of the Bird's Nest. Thank you so much for following along with us live on YouTube and Facebook. We are live every Wednesday, roughly, at 11 a.m., roughly, on our Facebook and YouTube channels. We love reading your comments and answering your questions. At some point here soon, too, we'll probably do a mailbag episode. Yeah. And, if you're commenting along on YouTube and Facebook, maybe we'll answer your question. But if you didn't catch us live, you can catch us after the fact on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us here on the Bird's Nest. Big thank you to Amy Jennings behind the scenes for producing this one. For Annie Klaff, I am Brendan Mortensen, and we'll catch you next time.